That Podcast Thing presents Home Movie Club, originally recorded May 2018, episode 24, Hot Potato.
Hello and welcome to Home Movie Club, the podcast in which we take an irreverent, and let's face it, sometimes irrelevant look at the highest grossing movies of the last 80 odd years. This time round, we are looking at Going My Way from 1944. Joining me today, as always, are Joe Carter.
Hello!
Daisy Swaffer.
Hi, going my own way.
And as always, my lovely wife, Sammy Kelch.
Howdy.
So thank you all for joining us. Yes, this time round we are looking at Going My Way, 1944, as I said, with
Bing Crosby!
Bing Crosby. I was about to say Frank Sinatra, but I knew that was wrong.
Lovely
With Bing Crosby and some potentially dubious Irish accents.
Ooh.
Who had a dubious Irish accent?
I wasn't overly convinced by the accent of the old father Fitzgibbon.
Well, he's from Ireland.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's that dubious.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Barry
He's
Fitzgerald.
from Dublin.
I don't know. To me, it just sounded all a bit Father Ted, but
I've never seen Father Ted, so I
He
don't
might
get
have
the
been, I
reference.
don't know, exaggerating it a bit, but he
Yeah.
is Irish.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say not dubious.
Yeah.
no,
Same.
fair enough. So let's get some opening thoughts about this 1944 movie, and we will start with Daisy.
I was surprised by this film. It was heartwarming and just made me feel all good and glowing inside. I was expecting it to be a bit, because some of the older musicals we've looked at haven't been that great. But this one was really, why have I not seen this before? This was a really nice feel-good movie. So I loved it.
Fair enough. Sammy, do you want to give us your first thoughts?
Sure. It was a movie that I witnessed for approximately 2 hours. And it was fine.
A glowing endorsement. And Joe, opening thoughts?
Like Daisy, I wasn't quite sure what to expect going into it. You know, we've watched some god-awful old movies.
We've watched some god-awful new movies
We've
as well,
watched
so.
some god-awful movies, but, you know, specifically some of the older ones have been just so bad and, like, so, like, dodgy, like, from a modern point of view. I was told there was a musical. Dave said something about Father Ted. I've never watched Father Ted, so I had no context for that. But Mum and I watched it, and we were charmed. I didn't expect to enjoy it quite so much, and I really did. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
And your first thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, personally, I don't know. I mean, I'm a little bit confused by this film because I don't quite know what it was trying to be. I don't know if it was trying to be a comedy. I know it's kind of vaguely musical. It's got Bing Crosby in it, but there weren't that many songs. It wasn't a musical in the sense we had with South Pacific where people just spontaneously burst into song.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It singularly failed to grab and engage me. And it was on and I was watching it, but I wasn't engaged at all. And I don't think, looking at what else was around in 1944, I'm surprised this is the movie that made the highest money. But
Meet Me in St. Louis did come a pretty good run second.
yeah, we have seen quite a few times where a film that is the top grossing film you look at and go, maybe in retrospect it's a surprise, but obviously, that's looking at it possibly from modern eyes as opposed to where we were in 1944.
Yeah, can I drop in a fun fact at this point?
Of course you can. First fun fact for Daisy.
So this was 1944. In fact, it was the 27th of April, 1944. The troops are well and thoroughly deployed from both America as well as, many European countries and generally the whole target audience for this film. And it was first shown, its very first showing was at 65 different military bases, mostly in Europe. So this was meant as a feel-good movie for the troops out on deployment. And it will equally have had that kind of impact for the people at home waiting for those troops. and, you know, working in the factories and things on the war. Everyone needed this feel-good movie, and I think it really did deliver that. So I think that's why it was so successful that year.
Oh, yeah, I could see it being more feel-good than something like, you know, Gaslight or Double Indemnity, which are two movies that were also released this year, which I really like. So that's part of why it surprised me, because those are both really excellent movies.
And Meet Me in St. Louis, which will have been also, you know, Meet Me in St. Louis is also a good feel-good musical.
Yeah.
But I think this one focuses more on the feel-good, and I think that's why it will have been more successful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a quick look at the top 10 for this year, and there were 2 or 3 that were blatantly just war propaganda films.
Yeah, it's not surprising given
which is of the
year
time
that it came
absolutely
out.
what you'd expect.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess looking at it now is possibly different from looking at it when it was 1944. But for me, I just didn't grab me.
Can I squeeze another fun fact in before we start?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
I don't have that many, but I'm packing them in.
Top loading them. There we go.
Do it.
We have another film that'll be coming up on the podcast, because 1945's highest grossing film is a film called The Bells of St. Mary's, which is a sequel to this film.
Well, then I'm more interested in watching it now.
Paramount wanted to borrow Bing Crosby from RKO in order to do The Bells of St. Mary's, but in order to do that, then RKO, is it from RKO? No. Yes. In order to do that, they had to let Leo McGarry write and direct this film using the same character. So even though this was written after The Bells of St. Mary's, it was set before it. So
Wow.
they wrote
It's a
this
pesky
after they wrote The
prequel.
Bells of St. Mary's. So we might find that's a bit strange when we come to watch The Bells of St. Mary's. We might find that we have something a bit odd because it was written before this one. So this was essentially a prequel to a film that hasn't come out yet, as far as we're concerned, in 1944.
Wow.
In a Bing Crosby double bill. And it was obviously, I think it rode on the coattails of the success of this one. This one was so successful in 1944, when then the sequel came out the very next year. Also Bing Crosby, the same characters, everyone had loved it. So then it was very popular the next year as well, where obviously they was still also needing a feel-good movie. So I'm expecting that one to be pretty feel-good as well.
Yeah. Oh, I'm definitely more interested in watching that one now.
Yeah.
So that's for a few months down the line. But for now, we are looking at Going My Way. So let's get into it. Film starts with Father Charles Chuck O'Malley, who is obviously Bing Crosby. An incoming priest from East St. Louis arrives in New York. The notes I've got here says, comes with an unconventional style that will transform the parish life of St. Dominic's Church.
He's wearing a lovely straw boater.
The hat is bizarre.
I loved it.
So yeah, he reaches New York City.
We don't see him first, though. First of all, we see the mortgage stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts up
very
with
obvious very early on.
The old father and the banker guy and his son at the beginning.
From the Knickerbocker Savings and Loans Company.
Yes, and they make it very clear that it's the Knickerbocker Savings and Loan Company every time they mention it. They say it.
The name. It's so good.
And it's just, I don't know why, other than just it's probably chosen as a name because it's fairly distinct, and therefore you tie these characters together. But
And it's the way that they always deliver it very straight. This is a very serious company, the Knickerbocker Savings and Loans Company. I can't say it without laughing.
So yes, actually the film opens on the old father, who is Father Fitzgibbon, who is a very traditional Catholic priest. He is in a meeting with the mortgage owner. Well, they a bank, so they're a savings and loan, aren't they? So they're not actually a bank. They're just a sort of.
Yeah, it's basically his business, is what we kind of find out later on. And yeah, that's they're like an official loan shop. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes, I don't know how it works in America, whether that is something that is more traditional than what you would get over here.
It might be before banking regulations were brought in, and that was more common thing back then. I don't know.
So we find out that the church is in need of more funds, but the Knickerbocker Savings and Loan Company refuses to supply more funds because they are behind on their rent. People being behind on their rent seems to come up a few times in this film.
But the church needs a new furnace, and that will get bums on seats, which will mean they'll put in more in the collections, which will help pay for the
Yep, and that is the argument of the son of
Mr. Junior,
the owner. However, that is not swaying the elder Knickerbocker Savings and Loans manager, who I've forgotten his name entirely. Which is terrible.
It's the same as his son's, but without the junior.
Yes, and I can't think what his name is either.
Business
I
dad.
never wrote that down.
Ted Haynes.
Ted Haynes.
Oh, that's it, Mr. Haynes.
Yes,
Ted
Haynes. And Ted Haynes Senior.
Oh, so I don't get to call him business dad. Oh.
No. So Father Fitzgibbon is trying to get cash out of Ted Haynes Senior. As we say, Ted Haynes Junior says that getting warm parishioners will get more bums on seats and theoretically more contributions, but Mr. Senior decides that that's not the way forward. They've given them a bad loan and they need their money back.
It's time to call it in, yeah.
So obviously at this point it's fairly clear that the church is not in a good way financially, and things need to change. We then see young Bing Crosby, and it is a very young Bing Crosby compared to...
He's so small.
He's 41, so he's not that young.
Really?
But he looks very young.
In fact, he's only 15 years younger than the actor playing Father Fitzgibbon.
Seriously?
Yep,
he looked
only
about
15
90
years between them.
And Bing Crosby looked about 20.
Well,
Yeah,
you know,
Bing
they
Crosby,
put him in those little
41,
spectacles and stuff, and he suddenly looks old manny.
Yeah, the chap playing Father Fitzgibbon is 56.
Blimey!
So, yep, 15 years between them. They
Oh,
played that well, I think,
Yeah.
to convince
Yes,
us
because
otherwise.
you wouldn't know that, because it does look like Bing Crosby is... Well, I mean, he's playing the character as, I would say, at the most 30.
Yeah, he's acting very sprightly.
Yes.
Sprightly is
Yes.
what I wrote in my notes.
Sprightly, that's good.
Yes,
yeah, you
he's
see,
leaping over bushes and...
I was going to say, I knew this was Bing Crosby, because when he came on screen, Mum went, "That's Bing Crosby." And I went, good, because I didn't know it.
Well, yeah, I recognize.
So good for my mum. Hey, Mum!
So yes, it's the first day for Charles Chuck O'Malley, and he's getting off to a fine start. He, for some reasons, gets blamed for...
Oh, no, he asks for
some
directions
children.
first and pisses off the lady Quim, or whatever her name is.
Oh, she's really grumpy.
She's kind of
super
awesome.
grumpy.
The first thing that happens is he goes on and tries to find the church, and he can't find it, so he asks a lady who is leaning out of her window...
Watering her plants.
Watering her plants, and this apparently is the local gossip, Mrs.
She
Quinn.
seems nice.
And then we get another interaction between her neighbours, and it's all a bit weird, possibly, for modern eyes.
Really? I thought it was kind of sweet.
What, the older neighborhood busybodies poking their heads out of windows and shouting? Yeah, that's very a big city in mid-century America.
Yeah, it didn't seem weird.
It didn't seem weird at all.
Cultural references for that too.
Perhaps that's just me,
Yeah,
then.
it was really cute because they were like, "Oh yeah, well we can tell you stories about her," and then she's like, "Humph," and backs out and whaps her head on the window frame, and I burst out laughing. It was like, okay, that's kind of a bit like poetic justice. Oops.
Yeah, and already we're having fun with this film.
Yes, exactly. And then helpfully, one of
are.
the other old ladies does tell Ben where he's supposed to be going.
Yeah, and they're super nice to him.
Yes, because
So
he's
he heads
new.
out towards the church, and on the way he intercepts a group of boys playing baseball on the street. Again, there was something about the characterization of the small boy who just seemed to stand there and shout all of his lines was a bit kind of odd to me.
Was it the same
But I'm
small
wondering
boy
if-
with the eyebrows?
I don't know, I couldn't work it out.
Because he was amazing.
Just a small child saying they never hit the ball towards me, which is, if you're playing baseball, you don't want to hit it towards a person anyway.
Yeah, but from his point of view, he's playing the game and he wants to be involved in it, which means
And they always stick him out in right field.
he wants the ball to
Left
be hit
field.
towards him. That's,
Yeah.
He's not very
Right,
old.
so he quickly swaps with Father O'Malley because I'm assuming he needs to go to the loo.
Well, yeah, he
The
says
ball
he has
is
to go
hit in that
inside.
direction. Yes, but he's shuffling in a way that would assume that he needs to go to the loo.
Yeah.
the ball is hit in that direction and goes through the window of one of the neighbours.
Yeah. Oops.
And everyone's scarpers.
Everyone's scarpers
Everyone's
except
scarpers.
for Father O'Malley.
Father O'Malley.
And somehow Father O'Malley gets the blame for this.
Yes,
Yep.
because he should have caught
Well,
the
he's
ball,
the only one left
clearly.
standing.
But he's acting like he literally picked it up and deliberately threw the ball through the window or something.
Well, the guy who's had the window broken has probably had this happen a number of times, and he wants to yell at someone for it, and the only person is this new bloke who stood there, who seems to be okay with accepting responsibility for it for some reason. So, yeah,
it's just
sure,
very
he goes to town on
unfair.
it.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah,
extremely
it is absolutely unfair, but I can kind of feel for the guy who's probably had his windows broken a number of times.
Oh
and
yeah,
that's not
oh yeah,
cheap
but
to
it's
fix.
just like he continues to rant even after Father O'Malley's
Yeah.
gone, I'm really sorry, I will pay for it. You know,
Yeah.
here, have some collateral. And the dude's just like, no, I don't want your collateral. I just obviously wanted to rant at somebody. Let me
But
rant.
what he was
but,
also
yeah.
doing at that point, when he gave back the rosary, he was telling us that he was an atheist.
Oh,
and
yes.
that means that, you know, the church community isn't as strong as it should be in the area. It's setting that up for us as well in terms of the church.
Yeah.
Am I
that was
a
good.
cantankerous, unpleasant person who just likes to yell at people?
No.
Not in our experience.
You occasionally sigh when I'm about to tell Dave he's missed something out, and it was fun editing Avatar. But you're not cantankerous.
Thank you. I mention this not as sort of like a personal I want you guys to validate me thing. I mention it because I did get that sort of, there was a bit of a dig at I mean, this is a very Catholic movie, but there was a bit of a dig at atheists there, and I'm like, excuse me, you know,
I'm an atheist.
we're
I
not
didn't feel dug out.
unpleasant people. Okay, well, just
But
because you didn't feel
as well, if you bear in
a
mind
bit
this is
excuse me about it, doesn't mean
1944
that
and
it's not valid that I
everything
feel
is
excuse me
war,
about it.
people are kind of, they're much more reliant on their faith at this point because they haven't got much else to turn to. Then they want to support that whole aspect. Of
I
things.
guess. I'm always a little bit wary of the people were just more religious back in the past kind of way of thinking, because we don't really have the ability to go back and ask people in the 15th century, hey, did you actually like super believe in the god, or did you just like go to church because it's what everybody did? Because I'm going to guess roughly the same percentage of people just went because that's what everybody did.
Yeah.
And it meant that, you know, you get days off work for feasts and stuff.
It was a social thing as well, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
Yeah,
Like York
community as
Minster
well.
was used basically as like a marketplace and things inside it. It was a social centre.
I think they made more movies that centered religion in the early half of the last century than sort of they do now.
Well, I think I can see in
or at least
I can see at least in times of conflict people being wanting to be slightly more reliant on something like that, because it's a comfort thing as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, really, I'm a very nice atheist.
So the
As
ball
am I.
is thrown back into the street. Father O'Malley comments that the gentleman even throws like an atheist. I don't know what that means.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
that
it
was
was
a
better
weird
than saying
line.
he threw like a girl. I was very pleased that wasn't a sexist comment.
I did
think
wonder
he was gonna say he
how
was going to throw like a girl, but that
How
that
you
was
can
He threw like a perfectly
differentiate.
normal person.
Well, he threw
like, does a Jew throw differently to a Muslim? Throw differently to a Christian? I don't know
I mean,
how you
this
can
is a guy
differentiate
who
the
pays a lot of
throws.
attention to baseball, because this isn't the first time that baseball related stuff comes up in this movie.
That's true.
So maybe
yeah.
he does notice certain patterns in terms of the throwing styles of people of various faiths or philosophies.
Well,
But
maybe
that,
it was-
I
that
don't
seems
know.
a bit weird to me. It's just like, oh
Maybe
wow,
it
look at
was.
that throw. That person's definitely a Jane, you know? I'm like, really?
It was an odd put down.
I think it was more as illustrative of the fact that he was through, like, he was frustrated with something, you know, obviously because he was like, he sort of petulantly threw it underneath the truck.
Yeah.
Maybe it was more of a comment that, you know, if you were felt more like part of the community, then you wouldn't be quite so grumpy about this ball.
He might be a bit more generous and
Which
forgiving.
seems a little
yeah.
unfair, because
Or
there are
he could still
definitely
have a
grumpy
broken
Catholics
window
in
he
this
needs to
movie,
buy a
come
new one
on.
for. End result is the ball ends up underneath a truck. Father O'Malley goes and recovers it, but in doing so, gets splashed by a passing lorry.
I thought it was a specific, like a street cleaner, because it seemed to be
what it looked like
quite
to me,
literally spraying a lot of water, and it wasn't raining, and it wasn't wet in the street. So that was very much...
it also wasn't moving very fast, so I feel like Father O'Malley should have noticed it before he went under the truck.
I was just glad that the truck didn't start up and run him over.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking was going to happen.
Yeah. That would have been an interesting movie.
That would make quite a short film, though, wouldn't it, really? Actually, a street cleaning would make more sense, because I couldn't work out where the water came from either. It just seemed to...
It looked like there was a hose type thing on it.
Yeah, it was being deliberately poured from the side of the truck.
Fair enough. So, end result is we have one wet father.
It's a soggy priest.
Yeah. He finally makes his way to the St. Dominic's Church, but before he meets with Father Fitzgibbon, he obviously wants to get changed because, well, he's soaking. But this does mean that the very traditional priest, Father Fitzgibbon, his first reaction is the sight of Father O'Malley coming down wearing... Sweatpants.
Especially when he's been told that he's gone to get changed first, so he's expecting him to be coming in like super smart. He's smartened himself up for me. Yeah.
And he's
No, he hasn't.
He's in a sweatshirt.
So it's the first of many disappointments for Father Fitzgibbon. Because this obviously is a very young priest who is into golf and randomly singing songs down the phone at his even more casual friend, Father Timmy O'Dowd.
Yeah, Father Timmy was bizarre.
As I said to Sammy last night, I don't know if this is something that was more a thing in American collegiate systems, but whenever they met, so whenever Father O'Malley and Father O'Dowd met, they sang their college song, and it just seemed sort of their alma mater song.
Which I can tell you is a thing in sort of collegiate America, because I have a sibling who went to an Ivy League university to do a graduate study in America. And they do indeed have a song. But no, I think at this point it's more of sort of a, sort of heritage legacy thing than something that people actually do. But they definitely, in olden years, they definitely did do.
Yeah.
Because these songs are still around.
Yeah, that never seemed disingenuous to me. That seemed quite believable.
I'm not thinking it was unbelievable. It just struck me as very, very strange.
Yeah.
Strange for us, but it's not the first time I've seen that by a long way in American media. So
I think the funniest part for me was in this, aside from him walking in a tracksuit, was that every time Father Fitzgibbons went to ask him how he became a priest, the phone rang. We never got to find out how we became a priest.
I'm assuming
maybe he'll tell us in the sequel, The Bells of St. Mary's.
I'm assuming he went to priest school.
So every time Father Fitzgibbon asks how Father O'Malley became priest, I say he's interrupted. The phone goes. First time it's Mrs. Quim speaking about the father's misbehaving and his breaking of the window, and she's very easily and quickly set up as the neighborhood busybody.
Tut.
And then again before
concerned citizen and churchgoer.
No, it's the trope of the busybody, I think, on this case.
But that's very much a anti-women thing.
Yeah, but in this film, we have a whole cast of characters that need Mary Poppins. Sorry, I mean Father O'Malley to fix their lives for them.
Yes.
And so she is set up as one of that cast of characters that needs their
that
priorities realigning. And
that is true.
I do love the Mary Poppins vibe of this movie.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it like that, but that is a very accurate way to describe it, Daisy.
Thank you.
So the second time there's a phone call, it is actually Father Timmy O'Dowd, and this is when they start singing their song down the phone, much to the look of utter disgust by Father Fitzgibbon.
He doesn't know what to do with it. It's like, this is really weird.
He doesn't know what to do with himself at all, does it? This strange man has wandered in wearing really not appropriate clothing and is just singing
songs
down
on
the
phone. And well, you were confused by that too, weren't you, sweetie?
Really was.
And he's kind of been assigned this chap, and he doesn't really want him. He wants to just carry on as he is and not have to do anything.
45 years at the church, he doesn't need an assistant, even though he's obviously getting a whole lot older than Bing Crosby. A whole 15 years older than Bing Crosby.
Can't believe
Yes, of course.
that.
Of course, if Barry Fitzgerald had actually been there for 15 years, he'd have been a priest since he was 11.
For 45 years. But he basically built the church. I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah, he is definitely playing a character older than his years.
Yeah.
Bless him.
Yeah.
They have a quick wander around the church grounds and then go to the chapel itself, and a slightly odd scene. Not odd in many. It's not odd in what happens. It's just slightly odd that they have a scene where they sort of kneel before the Virgin Mary. They light candles and then they put money in the offerings tray, which is in itself not a problem. But it was mimed for no apparent reason.
Well, it was respectful because it was in the church. I just thought it was cute that Father O'Malley lit one candle and then lit another candle and put it next to him and then indicated that was him and Father Fitzgibbons, and it was just really cute.
I liked that scene a lot.
I just don't know why. I mean, just whisper or something, but it was, I don't know.
I think it came across nicer for it being mimed, and I think that in the church then they probably don't speak unless they're meant to in a kind of respectful way, and that's it. That made a lot of sense to me the way that was done.
Same.
Shrug.
Yeah, shrug, very much shrug. I'm sorry, this film just really didn't engage me.
We're definitely divided down the middle on this podcast, aren't we?
Well, not divided down the middle between like sort of abject hatred and absolute devotion. We're divided in terms of this was pleasant and fun, and this was I have no feelings about it, basically.
Well, I really enjoyed it and would watch it again. Which
I'm happy to be on team loved it.
Yeah, I very rarely sort of say that about old films. I mean, we've watched some like French Connection and Rocky, and I've been just like, I don't see why everyone is so enamored with this film. I don't get it.
Or older ones like Mutiny on the Bounty or South Pacific, where we've been like, what?
Yeah, but that was all of us agreeing.
Yeah.
No, I have to admit, I am very much in camp. Whatever. This film did nothing for me. I didn't get engaged in it. I didn't care about any of the characters.
I was pleasantly surprised that I didn't actively dislike it, though. That's nice.
That is good.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't hate it. I didn't like it. It just was there. Yeah. Do we then go the following morning? My notes are a little bit sparse in places.
They get gifted the puppies.
The puppies happen, yes.
Before that, doesn't Mrs. Carmody greet Father Fitzgibbons as he's coming up about 10 o'clock or something, and with Father O'Malley's luggage?
Yes, that's where I thought we were. So the puppies are just slightly after
and he's already gone out because he was up early, and she mocks him for not being up early, which she's really cool.
Following morning,
and then.
Because then it's while he's out that he gets the puppies.
Yeah, because he's already gone to visit the parishioners because Father Fitzgibbons is like, oh, well, you could have spent your time better going to see the parishioners. He's like, I did, and I will have this gift. And it's a little basket full of cute cuddly puppies.
That we never see again.
I like the way that he's already, he's not waiting for the parishioners to come to him. He's going out there. He's finding out what's going on in the community. He's meeting them. He's being very proactive in his new role.
Oh, yeah.
And I liked that about him because he needs to know whose lives he needs to fix before he gets his brolly out and flies off at the change of the wind.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
So we see a scene just before he returns. We see a scene where Father Fitzgibbon just gets an eye of all the luggage that is being brought in, and it is all modern, in inverted commas, sporting paraphernalia. So you have tennis rackets and golf clubs and fishing poles.
Yes. He's like, well, where's the fishing pole? And she turns around and points to her back and goes, there it is. It was funny.
It's what you would expect to see on sort of a modern collegiate sort of person, as opposed to, I mean, as we discover later, Father Fitzgibbon has never even played golf, and golf's one of those games you expect sort of older generations to play.
Yeah.
So
I mean, my dad's been playing it since he was knee-high to a grasshopper, so
there you go.
So Fitzgibbon is rather critical of Father O'Malley's lifestyle and his recreational habits. Recreational habits rather than lifestyle, I should say.
Yeah.
Is it this point that we then get to finally meet Father Timmy O'Dowd in the flesh as opposed to over the phone?
Only after the puppies.
After the puppies.
After the puppies, yes. So
And
yes,
then
he comes back
That was
with...
the best
And
bit,
then Father
the
Timmy
puppies.
comes to ask if Chuck can come out to play.
Puppies.
the sort of Father O'Malley comes back with a large wicker basket, which is a gift from one of the parishioners. Father Fitzgibbon is hoping it's something like
Peaches.
brandied peaches or something.
He wants peaches.
But actually, he opens it up and he comments, "It's a very nice basket, but she wants it back." Opens it up, and it is indeed a litter of puppies and their mother.
This was a very odd present, and
Yes.
so I was expecting these puppies to be significant to the rest of the story, and we never saw them again.
Yeah.
It's
It
just
was-
a
it was-
lesson on how. I think it was just basically a lesson on how Father Chuck had been duped by the parishioner because she's always trying to get rid of stuff.
I think it's kind of
Yeah.
it's kind of indicative to me of the way that, for me, a lot of this movie felt just sort of like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this other thing happened. It just kind of felt like a sequence of sort of interesting things that happened, which just...
So, as you
That
said,
was
there's the
weird.
big box of puppies that is never seen again.
I assume that they're all fine.
Yes. Oh, the kids
Absolutely.
probably have them. They probably give
Yes,
them away
probably.
to the kids.
Yes,
Do
let's
you
go
think
with
that's
that.
wise?
Well, I don't know about that because they did say that the puppies were too young to be separated from the mother.
Yeah.
Now the mother was in the basket as well, but obviously you then don't give all the puppies away without the mother.
I'm pretty
as
sure
well,
if
so-
they were in whatever the place you call it where they were living, if they were in there, then we would have seen them at other points in the film.
No,
Some
again,
dominance.
it's almost inconsequential. The puppies just disappear.
It was...
Yeah.
They've served their purpose to point out that Father O'Malley can be possibly a little
Gullible.
gullible,
Naive.
Yeah, gullible and naive, and that's it. You
Yeah.
never see the puppies
are a
again.
plot device.
But they're so cute and adorable.
They are a cute plot
And
device.
so
I
cute.
won't
That's
deny
because
it, but they
they're
were a
puppies.
plot device, and that's it.
So then we get Father Timmy O'Dowd coming and asking whether he can go out and play with.
It's where the Chuck can come
O'Malley.
out and play, which I thought was cute.
Yeah,
But he annoys
And
me.
then-
Fitzgibbon was unimpressed.
Indeed, and again, it's the clash of old and new in many ways. I mean, I'm saying this from a position of never being any way, shape, or form involved in the Catholic Church. I have no idea whether this is something that would be legitimate now or whether this is how they acted even back then. But yeah, it did seem to be. This is the old guard, the fuddy-duddy old sort of priests, and this is the new funky priests.
Yeah.
Although even they are sort of fairly much not funky per se, because they have a scene later on where they're complaining about modern music.
Oh.
That was just hilarious.
Yeah, that's one word for it. It's at this point that we find that, although Fitzgibbon doesn't know it, actually O'Malley has been sent to replace Fitzgibbon, but is kind of doing it in a way that the bishop has sent him to take charge of the affairs of the parish, but Fitzgibbon is to remain as pastor and therefore is being kept unaware of his arrangement, which is, yeah.
It feels a bit underhand.
It feels underhand and very disingenuous towards the older father who's
But I
been there
can-
for 45 years.
I can
but...
believe a bishop being that manipulative.
But I also appreciate the fact that Father O'Malley knows this, but also can do what he's been sent there to do without making Father Fitzgibbon feel like he's being pushed out, which is really considerate.
I'm trying to think of a word to describe it other than political, and that's not the word I'm trying to use, but it's very
Ethical.
considerate and ethical. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, it's just done in a really nice way. It's like, yeah, I'm supposed to be in charge, but don't tell him because there's no need for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it
And
was
Father
just-
O'Malley is absolutely fine with that. He's like, yep, so that's a heck of a lot more restrictive for me to try to sort this place out, but I can work with that.
yeah, exactly.
And so he does, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, no, props to the father there.
So we then get a series of events highlighting the difference between O'Malley and Fitzgibbon's styles as we deal with events like the parishioners being evicted from the Knickerbocker Savings and Loan. Still not tired of saying that. and a young woman named Carol James having run away from home.
An 18-year-old who looked about 26.
And she did.
She was
in
played
this
by a
initial
23-year-old.
Let's be real. Like, when I was 18, was I wearing, sort of that level of formal dress anytime? No.
But you weren't in 1944. What did you say? Sorry, Days. How old was
The
she?
actress was 23,
23.
so you're not far off.
Yeah, we definitely knew that she was older than she was supposed to be, because we were like, she just looks... She looks like young and fresh face, but not...
Yeah, this was her first proper film role as well. She'd just played a bit part in a film before this, and this kind of launched a reasonable career
really
for her.
like
she was really good.
She was adorable, and I love her sort of delivery. It was so perfect.
Yeah, I really liked her this person. She was spunky. It was humorous. It was, although I think she went a little bit flat later on when she
shacks up with the dude and mellows out a bit.
Spoilers.
What? Anyone who's listening to this either has seen the movie or doesn't care.
I know. We do this every time one of us mentions something later on in the film.
This is a podcast about a film. This podcast entirely revolves around spoilers.
Yep. But it's fun to say it.
It is fun to say it. Yeah. Exactly.
I think we need to actually edit the description of the podcast so it points out that yes, there will be spoilers. I like Carol James in this first scene. She was very confident. She sort of, I don't know, she just seemed to be with it, which for a young woman of 18 was quite good.
Yeah, she was self-possessed. I think that's probably a good way of describing it, because she was like, yeah, I could go back home, but it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just that I want to be able to live my life, and I'm going to go out and do that. And that's good on her.
Yeah.
Indeed. And I suspect for 1944, that was more of a thing that it is now. So.
Very progressive, I imagine.
And I like the fact that in her storyline as well, she succeeds at that. So, albeit it might be to do with Father Mary Poppins-Mally's help and assistance with her and giving her some pointers, which he does at this point.
O'Malley Poppins.
Yeah, O'Malley Poppins. Yeah.
Oh, it's just funny because when he was doing the medicine thing later on, I was singing a spoonful of sugar makes some medicine go in my head, and I hadn't even connected why. It's obviously channeling you, Daisy.
Yeah. Of course, this film predates Mary Poppins, so it's not like they're copying Mary Poppins.
No.
Or maybe they read the book, and I don't know when the book was written.
Pauline Travers.
No, but the book, as I think we said in the first podcast we ever did, which was Mary Poppins, from almost exactly a year ago, although not when we released this, because that'll be later than that. The books were very different in tone from the film itself.
Good point, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's not the most unusual sort of conceptual theme ever.
Yeah, I think Mary Poppins does it better, but I really enjoy
the magic.
This Mary Poppins story. Yeah, she has
down
the
to
magic.
earth.
And obviously, although you've got the whole animation section of Mary Poppins,
with the penguins,
as we said, was actually a lot less than we expected it to be in time.
Yeah,
it was also just a more modern feeling film.
Yeah.
That might simply because it was in colour and this was in black and white.
But it's also 20 years have passed.
Film,
and in terms of
story, I didn't really even notice that this film was black and white. That didn't even clock with me at all. Yeah, it was.
No, I don't think it lost anything from being black and white. But...
Perhaps the way to describe it is a sort of a fairy godmother film. So you've got someone that comes in and fixes people's lives and then goes away again. It's sort of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
which is a lot nicer than the white saviour films that we've had to watch.
Yes. One of the most consequential differences of opinion between O'Malley and Fitzgibbon arrives in their handling of the youth of the church.
Kids these days.
Many of whom are constantly getting into trouble with
You can tell somebody is a youngin' back in the olden days because they're wearing that characteristic striped t-shirt look.
Oh my god, it's like just William everywhere.
When I see those in shops now, I always think, oh my god, it is like, I need to get that so I can look like a little boy from the 1940s.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was his name? Tony Scapone.
Yeah, so there was trouble with gang led by Tony Scapone.
But it was just hilarious because we were introduced to him falling over the church wall, holding a turkey.
Which I thought was a dead turkey.
So did I!
It was alive!
It was totally not dead.
We see them just slightly before that. We see O'Malley basically walks around a corner and there is a truck full of live turkeys, which this sort of horde of young boys and sort of adolescents are crawling over and just stealing all of the turkeys out of. Yeah. So, but what happened was that they heard, O'Malley hears Tony Scapoli say, "Let's escape via the churchyard," so he knows where they're going. But when they run through the churchyard, obviously they then run into Father Fitzgibbon, and to talk their way out of being in trouble, they give Fitzgibbon the turkey, which is still alive.
Yes. Not for long.
So then it starts flapping, so he gives it back to the boys and they take it into the kitchen.
Yeah, it's just hilarious because when they're sitting down to eat it, Father Fitzgibbon goes, I gave them my blessing. And then Chuck goes, and then they gave you the bird?
Yep.
But it was an actual bird.
Fitzgibbon obviously is inclined to lick the way, siding with the boys because of their frequent church attendance.
Yeah, he is. He is very much people's worth are judged on whether they come to church or not.
Yeah. So we have a scene later on where the policeman is sort of helpful, but is judged as being lesser because he's not been to mass for 2 years, and again that might be a Catholic thing. I don't know, because not being Catholic at all. But it did seem to be that the old Father Fitzgibbon was, you either a member of the community and you come to church every week, or you're somehow less worthy.
If you look at it from the point of view that this is a struggling church that desperately needs its collections, which means it needs a congregation, it hasn't got a big enough congregation. That means that from his perspective, everyone who isn't coming is to blame for the church failing.
Yeah.
Which is unfair.
Yeah, it is. But I can see that perspective.
So instead of getting the boys into trouble with the law, O'Malley decides to make inroads in their boy's life, befriends Scaponi, and eventually convinces the boys to become a church choir.
Oh, but first he takes them to a ball game, buys them hot dogs, and then takes them to see a movie, which in any other sort of, or any later sort of period, you know, a priest befriending all of these, you know, prepubescent
Catholic priest
boys
befriending young lads and taking them off to do things.
Exactly.
In modern sensibilities, that rings...
It rings alarm bells.
Oh, yeah, way too many bells. Klaxons, sirens going off there. But at least in the film, it's portrayed quite, you know, it's meant to be him trying to
He is befriending them,
lives.
yes. He's trying to improve their lives.
Rather than wanting to, you know...
And then say eventually he decides that they're going to become a church
choir. Which is what the boys were afraid of.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't see how that's sort of, you know, they're running around causing chaos, stealing things, or they can become a church choir. I'm just like, really?
I think he wanted to give them a purpose.
It's like why we build youth centres. It's to give kids something to do.
Yeah.
Because they've got all this energy. They want to do something. And if you don't give them something constructive to do, then chances are they'll go and do something that's not so good.
Yeah, something destructive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but as soon as they learned, I mean, they were amazing singers, and then it was just like, do you want to go and play some baseball, or do you want to do another song? Can we do another song, please? And it was just brilliant. I mean, there was the nice bit of bravado with Tony Scaponi at the beginning, going, "Look, Father, I've promised these guys that, you know, you're not going to try and make them sing. This is my rep on the line, you know, and if you try and do anything dodgy, I'm gonna drop you like a hot potato."
Yeah. Okay. Again.
Oh.
Slap.
But I thought it was really nice. Oh, come on.
It was nice. It was really nice.
Nope.
I don't understand why you're not getting the feel good from this.
I'm not. It engaged me 0%. I had no interest in it, and I was watching it. It wasn't as if I wasn't watching it, but I had no engagement with it. I cared nothing for it. So O'Malley is teaching the boys how to sing, sort of splits them up and gets them into a church choir and starts them practicing on three blind mice.
Which really pisses Father Fitzgibbon off for some reason.
Oh, he hates that song. Why does he hate that song? I want to know what his history with this song is.
Yeah, why does he have so much trauma related to Three Blind Mice?
Yeah, it's like this song in particular is the thing that really grates at him. It's not the slightly out of tune singing by a group of lads who haven't really sung before. It's that song.
Yeah. And then
Why
he goes off to
But
tell
this-
on O'Malley and
This
the
is the
priest.
straw that breaks the camel's back, yep. And so he goes to the bishop and goes to ask that O'Malley is transferred away.
Yeah, but because of that song, how things could have been different.
If only they'd been singing "Row, row, row your boat," everything would be fine.
Obviously, during this conversation with the bishop, it becomes clear to Fitzgibbon that actually the truth is that O'Malley is being put in charge, and
But by the
he's
bishop
being
not
sidelined.
saying it outright to him, he allows O'Malley to realise it and to instead volunteer his own stepping down.
Yes.
And I think that again shows the bishop's diplomacy on this matter. Although we don't see this scene, we just
no, we don't see this conversation at all. We learn about it secondhand.
We hear about
but...
it from Fitzgibbons, and I think it's maybe a little bit of saving face, because we don't know that the bishop actually said that. It's possible that the bishop said, "Oh, O'Malley's not there to be your curator or whatever. He's there to be in charge." And Fitzgibbons then has come back to talk to O'Malley and gone, I just sort of thought that you should be in charge and I'll step down because I've...
No, I think it is an accurate portrayal of the conversation, because at the end of the conversation with O'Malley, just as he's leaving, he goes, "That was the subject of your conversation with the bishop, right?" He just wants to check that he didn't misread the situation completely and step down unnecessarily. And
Okay, fair enough.
O'Malley just quietly goes, "Yeah."
Where
and
there
he's
was
like,
a
"Okay,
little
yeah."
bit of
So
saving
I
face
did do
there,
that. I did do my interaction with the bishop correctly. I read the situation right, and so he goes off feeling a bit more comfortable that he has managed to save face and he didn't just make a terrible mistake.
Yeah.
However, this obviously distresses Fitzgibbon, and in the middle of a storm at night, he runs away, which leads to a search because, despite everything, oddly enough, despite what he may feel, the others of the church, O'Malley and
Mrs. Carnegie,
don't hate him at all, and actually are really worried about his.
Yes, because they're
they are.
they're a family.
Yeah, exactly. But I think he sees it as he's being replaced and he's not wanted, and therefore he just needs to leave.
Yeah, and after 45 years, suddenly, not by a choice of his own, he's having to step down. I can understand that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
No,
it's
that's
pouring
quite
with rain.
sympathetic.
Man, is that rain coming down.
Oh, but the policeman has
Almost
such a
as if they're
really
in a soundstage.
the policeman has a really cool rain hat coat thing.
Yeah.
Which is epic.
Yeah. So yes, eventually the night wears on. And
O'Malley is
sitting
out there
waiting.
in that pouring rain looking for him, and he's got the police on the case, and he's not just sitting on his laurels waiting for Fitzgibbon to come back.
No.
He's out there looking.
Yeah.
Eventually, he does return to the.
Well, the
church
policeman tells him to go back because it's not worth everyone else getting
It's too
wet.
wet. It's too cold. It's not. Yeah, exactly. So there, we see a scene where they're all sitting there waiting, watching the clock as it rolls towards midnight, which isn't that late, really, I suppose. But
I think for him it is, and I think any kind of time out in that rain will have been felt a lot longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he eventually gets returned by the policeman, who is then again shamed for not going to mass.
Well, I think that's a little bit of sort of false bravado because he
quite
feels a bit
misdirection,
sheepish
but-
that he's run away and he's had to be brought back like a small child.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's like, I
the
want to go in on my
policeman's
own,
advice, yes, to go in and tell them that you're very sorry and you won't do it again.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I suspect is a speech he's given to runaways,
Exactly.
usually under the age of 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it was so sweet.
And the priest doesn't argue with it either. He's just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm gonna go in on my own. Don't come in with me. It'll be easier if I go in on my own.
Yeah. So Fitzgibbon actually tries to sneak in, but he is met by his comrades.
Who doesn't let on that he's been out there looking for him either.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just they sort of sheepishly looking around the door, and then O'Malley's sort of lounging there nonchalantly on this incredibly uncomfortable looking chair thing. And then he's like, "Oh, I'll go. I can sleep on the couch, and you don't." And O'Malley's like, "No, get this wet coat off you and get you up to bed. And Mrs. Carmody's gonna get you some dinner. She's been keeping it warm, and it's a bit of roast beef and Yorkshire pudding and hot potatoes." And it's just like, they, you know, they're showing, they're just so concerned about him. It's really sweet.
Yeah, and then we see him eating his food on a tray in bed, and he's being all looked after. And that's when he finally lets his barriers down with O'Malley, and they have a bit of a tipple together with a hidden bottle of booze.
Yeah, that. Yeah, because I was like, when he opened the box and the music was playing, I didn't connect that the music was coming from the box until I realised that when he closed it, it stopped. So I thought,
I think because music boxes just aren't a thing anymore. It's just like,
hey, I had one when I was growing up, but one does not normally keep 2 glasses and a bottle of liquor in it.
Unless you're an Irish
That might just be you, Joe.
Yeah, I know.
I had jewellery in my
I
jewellery
definitely
box.
kept a nice bottle of single malt in there, so I don't know what you're talking about, dude.
Yeah, so they have,
So they discuss Ireland and the fact that his mother sends him a bottle of, I assume, Irish whiskey. And he says he's not seen his mother since he left Ireland as a young priest come to America, and that she is now over 90, and that he keeps meaning to go back, but every time he gets a bit of money, there's always someone else who needs the money more than he does, so he's never actually returned to Ireland.
Sweet.
Which fairy godfather O'Malley files away in his little how can I fix people's lives little list.
This is so cool. It's so cool. And then Fitzgibbons asks him to sing to him, and he sings the Irish lullaby, and he sings him to sleep, and it's so cute.
This is the first time these two priests have connected with each other. And they've connected in such a nice way, and it's the best kind of way of making Father Fitzgibbon feel like this is where he belongs. It is his home. He is wanted. He is cared for.
Yeah.
So, this is a really lovely scene.
It's such a sort of stereotypical toxic masculinity type bonding experience. He's taking care of him and they're connecting.
It's a sweet friendship found family moment.
Yeah.
So O'Malley, following morning, and O'Malley runs into Jenny Tuffle, an old girlfriend whom he left the priesthood. Sorry. An old girlfriend who he left to join the priesthood. He didn't leave to join. That makes more sense.
I'm not sure they were strictly together.
Oh, they were totally having a non-actual thing, because she was there was clearly a relationship, even if it wasn't a romantic one, but there was definitely affection on both sides.
They were writing to each other. And...
I don't think that they were boyfriend and girlfriend.
No. I think it was an ex. Well, no, I mean, it was a friend that he'd not seen in a while.
Yeah, a friend who I think if she'd have lived more stably, then things could have gone that way between them. I think that's how it was.
Yeah, because she is an opera singer, and she is travelling all over the place.
Oh, she's incredible.
She is actually an opera singer, so yes, that's
her singing.
But she was still incredible.
She did a great job.
Runs into Jenny Tuffle, who is now having a successful career with the Metropolitan Opera and performing under the stage name of Guinevere Linden.
And performing
I have
Carmen.
A fun fact here. So Risë Stevens, who plays this character, in the movie that we're watching, she's playing Carmen at the Metropolitan Opera, and she actually does in real life go on to play Carmen at the Metropolitan Opera, but not until December the 28th, 1945.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Was that prescient or...
Well, I mean, she's a famous opera singer in her own right, so it was probably inevitable if she was living in that area at the time. So I love that. I feel like this was an audition for her.
Yeah, equally, this film won't have hurt their chances of doing that, would it? So
yeah.
So as she prepares to go on stage as the lead in the performance of Carmen, the two discuss their past, and she learns.
But while she's getting dressed, so she hasn't seen him and hasn't seen the dog collar, and she's like, "No, I never got your last letter. I don't know what that was." And he's like, "Oh."
Yeah, because when he first sees her, he's got a big coat on, and his
collar's up, and there's no way that she can see. And then she comes out when the conductor comes in, and he turns around, and she's like, "Oh, Father Chuck."
And she smiles and she's supportive.
Yes.
And I loved that. I loved that.
It just looks like she's really happy for him.
And
Yeah.
in
She
that
thinks
moment,
it's sweet.
in that moment, she saw the point where this person she could potentially have a future life with was no longer available, but instead of making it about her and how that affected her, she was happy for her friend.
Yes.
And that he'd obviously followed this calling. And that, you know, he was radiating happiness in the way that he was standing
Oh
there.
God,
and
yeah, it's
talking to her.
clearly
So-
the right thing to do.
Yeah,
Though we
yeah.
still don't know why he became a priest.
No, we don't.
It was obviously all in that letter that we
Yeah,
never got to read.
yeah, it was probably in that letter, so she doesn't know either.
Him and Timmy, you know, the two of them, thick as thieves, both became priests. It's like, there's clearly a story here. Maybe we'll find out in the Bells of St. Mary's.
I really hope we do.
If we don't, I'm going to throw something.
Am I the only person who isn't bothered in any way, shape, or form as to why they became priests? I assume that they just...
Because it was teased, and he
seems
was
Yeah,
like
they
a nice
teased
so many
it,
times.
Like, it doesn't have to be more complicated than that.
Yeah, but they teased it, which
Yeah.
means that there's something more there.
I
so we don't
guess.
know.
That's literally the reason, is because we never got the answer to the question, and I hate unanswered questions.
I don't...
You know me, I'm insanely curious and nosy and all that stuff, so it really bothers me when I don't know a thing.
I'm usually nosy a bit.
We then get a brief interlude that is indeed Carmen, because we get to see O'Malley standing on the side of the stage watching as...
But yeah, you don't hire an actual, real-life, genuine famous opera singer to this movie unless you're going to actually have them sing some opera. So
Yes.
In any way, shape or form, you're going to crowbar that in.
Yeah.
And I think they did that
I
reasonably
think
well.
they
here.
did, and
smashed it.
she was wonderful, wasn't she? Wow.
Again,
Yeah,
I think...
and he was watching in the sidelines, and his expression was interesting. He looked a bit sad,
Yes!
and it was like,
Oh!
are you reflecting on what your life could have been here? Is there what is more to this story?
Yes. No, you're completely right. He did look sort of,
Wistful.
woebegone, wistful,
Yeah.
poignant. And then I thought he was going to leave, but he didn't. He came round to the other side so that he could actually see her.
Yeah, but then he did have to go, and he
But he
waited
didn't-
till she'd finished, and there was
Yes.
miming to her. I have to go. Like,
Yeah, it
pointing.
was polite and considerate,
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
waited. He wanted to see her, but he didn't want to just walk away. And I think that was just really, really well done and
Yeah.
really sweet.
Though at the end of this scene, I was like, okay, that was nice, but I'm not sure why we had that scene. I wasn't sure what the point of it was, but as the story then unfolded, I understood.
Yes,
what-
I was going to say the story does tell us why.
Yeah.
But at that point, I was like, that was nice, but why?
I agree.
Well, I thought
felt
it was
like a
gonna
kind
tell
of-
us.
It felt like just going into an entire song from Carmen felt like a bit of a break from the story, which felt a bit weird to me. But on the other hand, what I did say to Davey when we were watching it last night was, I would quite happily, I think, have watched and be more engaged in just an entire production of Carmen.
Fair
Well,
enough.
I feel
I'm
like
not
we
sure about
watched
that
different
either.
And I'm
films.
not,
Yes.
I'm
I
not
loved
huge,
this so
like, I'm not like
much.
a massive opera fan. I'm not a huge fan of Bizet in particular, but she's a very good singer.
Mm.
And I would watch
Yes.
more of that. I would watch a film of that and be more into it than this, which was just a bit boring.
When I was reading about obviously like the people who played the characters in this movie and whatnot, I found that Risë Stevens actually lived until she was 99
Yes.
years old.
She did. She was only a couple
What
of
a
months away from
lady.
100.
Like, wow.
That is incredible.
Good going there.
She did a good
Yeah.
job.
O'Malley next pays a visit to Carol, who is now suspected of living in sin with Ted Haynes Jr.
Yes,
Mrs.
because
Quimp
Mrs.
is
Quimp-
complaining about
yes.
her first.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
rings up, and then because Father Fitzgibbons has now, gotten his verve back, but he's also going, right, well, you should probably deal with this, because I don't want to deal with Mrs. Quimp.
Because you're in charge now. That's your problem.
Yeah, and then she's like, "Oh, I've seen him going in and out at all hours," and I'm thinking, "Oh my god, what is happening here?" And then
We find out. He's murdered someone and is taking the body out of
Finally!
the
Movie.
If Hitchcock had made this movie, that is what would have happened.
On his visit, O'Malley describes to the young couple his calling in life to go his way. To which he means to follow the joyous side of religion and lead others to do the same. So that's kind of why he joined the priesthood. It's a bit vague, but
that's enough.
He performs for them the song "Going My Way," which he wrote on this.
And they said the name of the film in the film.
I did shout, "Hey, that's the name of the movie."
Said the thing.
This the Haynes chap, he must have a fair bit of cash though. He's even bought Carol a baby grand piano.
Yeah,
like whoa,
was a pretty
seriously,
decent ass
that's
piano.
lush, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wow.
You must really like this.
And he's like,
sort of...
"Do you want to quickly play it to make sure I've not bought a lemon?" It's like, well, did you not even test it before you bought it, or did you just?
Yep.
I think it's more of a let's distract the priest because he wants to hear our story, and we're feeling slightly sheepish about this.
And, you know, they were like, what we could do with here is for a title song to be sung. So if we could get Bing Crosby to do that, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that song is. It didn't stick at all. Some of the songs did. That one...
It wasn't very
memorable.
memorable.
This one I felt was a bit odd. So Bing Crosby was playing the piano before he started singing. When he started singing, the camera was cut off and his arms... were not moving. He was not playing the piano at the same time as singing. The piano had been added separately, and it didn't seem to have been added in the right key to where Bing Crosby was singing. So the whole thing sounded a bit naff.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought that didn't sound
very
quite
good,
right.
but actually,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the piano was added in at the wrong key, or, you know, Bing was singing it in a different key to what he was meant to be singing it. But hey, it's Bing Crosby. Changed to his key. So yeah, the whole thing sounded bad because of that.
Yeah.
If he'd have been playing the piano at the same time as singing, it would have been so much better.
well, in fairness, they reprised the song later, and I still didn't find it particularly memorable. There are other
but it
songs
didn't
in this
sound
movie
bad,
that I think are better than that one. Namely, the Carmen song, and another song we'll get onto later that I have some very happy memories of, which I will recount at that time.
Good.
Jenny visits O'Malley at the church, sees the boys' choir, and reads the sheet of music for Going My Way.
Hang on, you missed the whole explanation of what they were doing in the apartment, aside from him having lots of money and buying a piano.
Well, that's possibly because I've completely forgotten it.
They had this cute story about how they met, and they're obviously in love.
Oh, that was adorable.
Oh yeah, the way he picked her up by saying some random...
Oh yeah, but that was so funny because he was obviously embarrassed about what he said, and she was just like, "Well, I remember exactly
He used
what
a
you
cheesy
said."
chat line on
used
her,
a
and she
super
wasn't
cheesy
having
chat
any of
line.
it, but she still quite fancied the look of
sort
him.
of like pretty lady walking down the street.
Yeah. So she
Hey,
was having
pretty
none of
lady,
that, and I'm
what's
like,
cooking?
yes, absolutely right. But then he came to her door calling for the mortgage money, or the rent, or whatever it was, the savings, Knickerbocker savings and loans were after. And then they actually talked properly, without any cheesy pickup lines, and found they really liked each other. And
Yes.
that, I think, is really nice. And goes to show, cheesy pickup lines are not the way to get women interested in you.
Take that point. Yeah, but I have to say that from Father O'Malley's point of view, the fact that he was letting her live there rent free, basically, he bought her a piano. It seemed slightly dodgy, and he could understand why Mrs. Quimp, who obviously was nearly kicked out by the same guy, but for not paying her rent.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there was a little bit there, but it does
Yeah,
come together
I
later on
understood
in the
Crimp's-
movie.
You can see implications.
Yes.
I think implications is a good way of wording it.
I can see from Mrs. Quimp's side that there was some favouritism going on here, and this felt very unjust to her as a result. Yeah, that's fair. But, you know, as we then find out later, he leaves the company, so there's no favouritism going on there anymore.
They're just in love.
Do we know when he leaves the company?
In a couple of scenes.
Yeah.
I think.
At that scene, he says 2 weeks ago, but we don't know what the timescale for any of this is.
No,
true.
the timescale seems very odd because, yeah, I mean, I don't entirely know, but I'm assuming about a year over the whole movie.
It's until the wind changes, isn't it?
Well, it's the thing you say about a year, but you know they end just before Christmas or coming up to Christmas, and when he first got there, it wasn't. You know, it would have been I would say from the lighting of the soundstage setup that it would have been sort of spring / early
so it's
summer.
not going to be quite a year.
Spring.
It's more
Yeah,
like
so
a
like
few
9
months.
months. That's...
I mean, if his role is literally you go into this church, you sort it out, and you leave, and you're there for 3 weeks, that's no life for anybody, is it? So.
Well, I'm sure there are jobs like that.
I think he was just there until he sorted out people's lives, however long that took.
Yeah.
As you say, until the wind changed.
That is the Poppins remit.
Don't be gone long, Mary Poppins.
Goodbye, Mary.
She'll never be back until you mess up your lives again.
I'm English.
So yes, now you get Jenny visiting O'Malley at the church and seeing the boys' choir. Reads the sheet music of Going My Way. Is this at this point where O'Dell admits that he's taken the music to the publisher he knows, but the publisher says it's too schmaltzy?
I think so, yeah. They were singing...
Ave Maria was beautifully done.
Yeah, and then...
Especially because it was the boys and it was Bing and that sounded lovely, and then Risa joined in and it was like, oh my word, these are such wonderful singers singing a beautiful song. This is so nice.
I was probably half asleep at that point. But yes, their plan is to somehow get a record company to buy or publish and create Going My Way as a song so that they can use the money to pay the rent
on the church.
So they devise a scheme where they're going to rent out the Metropolitan, which I don't know how much it costs to rent out the Metropolitan.
It feels like it must be a lot of money. I suspect
it's possibly more than the cost of, especially where they had a full orchestra and everything else. It seems like that would cost more than the rent of the church.
However, they have the lead singer of Carmen and the conductor, who probably
she probably pulled in a few favors.
I imagine it didn't cost anything, and it was just favors pulled in because they had the choir and the music, and she wanted. I reckon it was Timmy and her got together and sorted all.
But they had a full orchestra. The orchestra's not going to just turn up to do this thing for free.
No, but if she timed it for just after rehearsal or something, then it should be like, hey, I've got this favour, Catholic priest, you're all nice, good Catholics, and so you'll help us out, And, assuming that she's very well liked, then, I'm going to assume favours pulled.
But yes, the idea being that they will use the setting of the Metropolitan and the choir and the orchestra and everything to actually woo the executives and get them to buy out on the song.
It's such a good plan.
Yeah, unfortunately, the song itself is, as they say, too schmaltzy.
They said it was really good, though. Just
really good, just too good for them.
Yes, it was too high class.
That was a really nice rejection.
That was a nice rejection. No, we really like it. You're just too good.
This happens after we get the army thing.
We haven't had the couple and the father coming over and storming in and being all...
so we have them decide that that's what they're going to do, but we don't see it straight away.
Yeah, so we have the plan hatched, but not actually committed to yet, because we do see a scene where the Ted Haynes Sr. goes to the apartment that Ted Haynes Jr. and Carol are now living in, and he complains that that's one of his apartments. And
she's so nice to him when she's not in a full proper attire.
She's basically in her nightgown.
Yes, so she's decently covered, but she's not properly attired. But
she's
the
decently
door
covered for 1944, just about.
Realizes that this guy must be the dad, and it's just so nice to him. And she's like lovely and charming.
Really wanted to meet you. I'm really, really pleased to meet you. It's just, she's adorable. I keep overusing that word in this movie, but it's just
adorable. And then the sun comes out, and he's like scooping her off her feet and spinning around, and doesn't even notice that his dad is there. And it's just so nice because they're so happy together, and it's lovely.
It's like they're both in their nightwear.
Yeah.
But then my mum cleverly spotted the ring, and she's like, "Oh, they got married," and I'm like, "What? Oh!" So that was clever of my mum to point that out.
Yep. So apparently they got married, and they got married in the church.
And Father O'Malley did it.
Yeah. He's doing his little dream making there.
Matchmaking.
So Ted Haynes Sr. complains that this was a secret wedding, so therefore it wasn't be allowed, and they'll annul it. And more importantly, this means that the wedding was sort of illegal, possibly.
Could be annulled. He wanted it to be annulled.
But that also meant that the church had done wrong because it was a sort of secret wedding. But it was then pointed out that it was in all the papers and that he just never gets past the finance section.
Yeah, I was like, did they not send him an invite though?
Yeah, it's like, were you not invited? Did you not talk to him at all between now and then?
Yeah, like surely you don't just rely on him noticing the advert in the papers of the fact they're getting married. You say, "Hey, Dad, we're getting married."
I think
I've met a
he
girl.
was secretly just peeved that he wasn't invited. I think that's why he was so grumpy there.
But why wouldn't you invite him?
Because they obviously thought he would try and stop them. That's why.
Mm. But then, upon learning that they're married, then he's like, well, that means that you're living off your wife because you stopped working for me. Yes. And this is a terrible, awful thing until the son points out that, hang on, when you were getting on your feet, didn't you live off of my mum there? That's, I know,
that was
hilarious.
Yeah. And that's true. And I think it was that very moment that made him start reflecting on things a bit differently for him, when he started to think about when he was that age and his situation with his wife, and that, well, he came good from that, and you could see the cogs start to turn in his head while his son goes off to get dressed.
Yeah, so his son goes off to get dressed, and then reappears wearing
an army uniform.
Air Force.
I think it was Air Force.
It was Air Force,
because he said about the thank you for buying me the plane, because the 600 hours of flight experience got me this job.
He used his...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they have this tearful goodbye that he's going right then. Right then.
Yeah. You know, his dad could have turned up 10 minutes later and missed him entirely. So
she's like, oh, sorry, you just missed him.
I have to confess, at that point, I did think that we were not going to see him again. I did think that was it, and we weren't going to see him again, and we'd get a different ending.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering the same thing.
Yeah,
and that,
but we don't.
And then it's that moment when then he walks out the door, and it's just his dad and his new wife stood there, just the two of them, and that's when his dad really starts to feel that this young lady is a part of his family, and that this is an important connection for him, and you can pretty much see that change in him through this scene. And Father O'Malley isn't even there, and it was his work still, you know?
Yeah.
And I really, like, this scene really touched me.
Yeah. I thought it was really, when the son was in the bedroom getting dressed and he calls out, honey, where's my hat? Yeah. And she goes in to find it for him. The father just seems sort of like at a loose end, and he fluffs the pillow and then sits down on the sofa. I thought it was just really sweet.
He has the argument he was going to have in his head, and sort of it's just like he's
Oh, it was just really sweet. And to me, he was at that point saying, well, I wish you told me. I wanted to be there. That's what he was arguing with them about.
Yeah.
And then the son comes out in the uniform, and it's just like, no. I mean,
the whole scene is really well played.
Yeah.
You can really see this change in him as a person through this scene. He's played it very well, and the young couple are supporting characters really to his transformation as a person. And just these few minutes, it's really impactful, I think. I don't know how you guys weren't connecting with this film.
Yeah.
Not at all. I'm sorry.
Wow.
No, sorry. So now we go on to the Metropolitan Opera House. We have the Going My Way sung. However, as you said, the execs were not impressed.
All the street kids were there in suits. I'm like, where did the kid-sized suits come from?
Clearly, they've got some maybe they supplied them themselves, or they got some kind of deal.
Well, they're in the opera house. The opera house probably has.
Yeah, it must be the costume department of the opera house, because I mean, they were really well turned out, and it was like they didn't just find those suits. They're those suits are for those kids. Where's the other money from? Yeah, costume. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, the plan fails, and the music executives decide, no, not for them.
If only Father O'Malley had a less high-class song up his sleeve.
Yeah, so when we think that they've left...
Yeah, they decide just to make use of the fact they're on a stage and they've got the choir, so they sing another song, which is Swinging on a Star.
Oh, I thought it was called The
Would
Mule.
you like to swing on a star? Carry moonbeams home in a jar.
I think the kids describe it as mule because that's the sort of
First
the
animal
first
that gets
animal
Oh, I didn't know
thing.
that was called Swinging a Star. I really like that song.
Or would you rather be a pig?
That's the one song that I knew, and again, this is why I
thought I
sort of wanted
recognised
to check
it.
whether it was written for this film or whether it was actually something
And-
else.
Oh.
But
Fun fact time.
But
This-
can I
Fun fact
just
me.
say one thing before you fun fact us?
Uh-huh.
That kid's facial expressions and the eyebrows. Okay, you can go on now.
So, this song was written by Jimmy Van Heusen, Jimmy Van Heusen, and it won an Academy Award for Best Song.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the very first time that Academy Award was given to the same film for Best Picture and Best Song.
Ooh.
Wow,
Yeah.
interesting.
Also, the famous singer Andy Williams
Oh yeah.
was one of the kids there in the scene singing. Yeah,
Wow.
one of the kids.
Nice.
Alright.
And as I say, that's a song I know, but again, as we discussed last night, with
We-
as I discussed last
We
night
know
with
it
my
because
wife,
different reasons.
no one else was there. Hopefully, it's from a kids' TV show or a sort of.
It was an
What was it?
80s sort of like family sitcom about a teenage girl whose dad was like an alien from outer space called Out of This World.
And I remember absolutely nothing about the TV program other than I know that
I
song.
remember
from it,
she
so.
had certain like special powers because she was half alien. So one of the things I can remember that she could do is that if she sort of touched the tips of her index fingers together in a specific way, she could stop time.
This sounds like a cool show.
It was probably it was
80s,
a
but good.
sitcom. It was a family sitcom from 1987, I think. So it probably isn't great, but I definitely watched a lot of it, so it was probably fine.
So they go on to sing "Swinging on a Star" for their own amusement, or anything else.
It's a good
And
song.
Shocking
And they'd obviously well
Revolution
rehearsed
time.
it. So
Yeah.
it was obviously a
Shocking
favourite.
Revolution
Oh,
time.
that was really
The
sweet.
executives haven't actually left the theatre.
Plot twist.
They heard
And they
it.
come back.
This was just exactly the not high class song they were looking for.
Exactly. So they come back and decide to buy it, providing sort of enough money to sort of pay off the rent needs, and off they go to do tours and things, which was convenient. With the church affairs in order, O'Malley and Timmy decide to take Fitzgibbon on the golf course.
This is hilarious.
Well, first of all, they take the publishers to St. Dominic's.
Ah,
Yeah,
yes.
because they do the collection. And
Yeah.
there's like that one-upmanship with the donation box.
Yep. This is another great way of doing a bit of fundraising for the church. Take these publishers along to this. Like, they're not even Catholic by the looks of it, because they look a bit confused
Yeah.
by
They're
the
confused and slightly
ceremony
uncomfortable, certainly, yeah.
of the whole sermon and whatnot itself. And then, yeah, the collection things come out, and it's like, oh yeah, this is why you've been brought. Come on then, pony up, and they do. And a massive wad of cash goes in at the end there. Absolutely brilliant.
Oh.
And Father Fitzgibbon is overjoyed.
Well,
but
yeah,
then
'cause he think-
O'Malley's like, well, you got all this money now. I'd really like 50 cents so I can get a golf ball so I can play golf with my mate.
Oh, but before that, Father Timmy puts his donation in the box at the back, and it clinks loudly, and everyone looks around.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he needs to beg for 50 cents for a golf ball, or was it more so that they could invite Fitzgibbons out to golf?
I think that was it, yeah. So
it's a
it's
bit of
to
a ruse.
Start to twist his arm a bit and get old Fitzgibbon on his transformative journey of his own and get him out of the church and a fun activity with a bit of bonding and getting him out of his shell and enjoying life.
Yes, so personal improvement through the medium of golf.
Yeah.
Sure.
They go and have a golf lesson or a golf round together. And
Get
yes,
my
this
golf
brings
balls
Fitzgibbon
stuck
out
in
of
a
his
bunker.
shell quite a bit, and it certainly seems to help. Makes him appreciate life a lot more and makes him feel younger.
They have a really nice time with him, and then they, at one point when he hits the ball out the bunker and he can't see where it goes, they scoot the ball into the hole, and then they're like, "You did it! You got it in!" And he's so happy.
First ever shot on the golf course.
It was like keep your head down and watch your language, and then it was like but he got it out the bunker on the first shot.
That bunker, which was more than Timmy did, because it took Timmy 5 attempts. So
it was just like, so we count the shots then, and it's like, how many was that? 2, and then he was holding up 5 fingers to the father.
Yep, that was 5.
Yeah, and then of course Father O'Malley got it in 1, and then with the fact that that was just really sweet with Father Fitzgibbon.
It was really lovely, and it really did show a lot of character progression. Like, you couldn't have imagined the Father Fitzgibbon from the start of this film.
Oh no
doing this, and seeing him now is just, it's really touching. I mean, I don't understand how you guys didn't engage with this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe at the start, if you'd been told he's a fairy godfather, essentially he's doing a Mary Poppins to all these people's lives, if you'd have been better invested in the film.
I mean, I was geared up to not like it because, you know, I was expecting something significantly worse than what it was, but for what it was fine.
Well, I have to say that the first hour, we paused halfway through, and I was thinking, oh, whoa, there's another hour left. The first part did drag a little bit.
Oh!
We were thinking that after the first 20 minutes.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah, that's about when we paused
guys.
and we were like, how much longer is this thing? It's like a sequence of things happening, and yet not really anything actually happens.
Speaking of events happening, it seems that everything's fallen into place and that there's money coming in. When suddenly, for no apparent reason, the church is badly damaged and a massive...
Oh my god, this was just completely weird. I did not understand what happened. Who set fire to the church?
Plot device did.
Yeah, I was gutted when the church...
Because the movie needed some drama at that point. Let's be real.
Finally going to see his mum.
I was just like, everything is so good and everything's working out and I'm so happy.
Well, there's
and then
the other
church
shoe
is on
dropping.
fire.
It's just a disaster ex machina.
Yeah, disaster ex machina. I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
They need to repair and rebuild the church. Fitzgibbon is pretty much starting to give up hope because although they got the money together for the rent,
how are they going to afford to rebuild an entire building? Yeah,
the sort of magnitude of the task to rebuild the church is such that that's just not happening.
And so he becomes sick and he's in bed.
He's in bed, and then you get a spoonful of sugar.
O'Malley's, making him take his medicine, which is just, that's, like, it really shows how far these pair have come in their relationship together, you know. It's a really lovely moment where it's like he's looking after his sick dad, essentially, but he's kind of like they're playing with each other, with him refusing to take his medicine, and then he's like, well, I'll take it if you take it, so he does, and then he says, yeah, don't take this yourself because it's horrible.
Tastes
so
like
he kind of lets
kerosene.
him off the hook for that, even though that was the only reason he said he'd have it, and it's just, like they're playing off each other really nicely.
It's just very sweet.
Yeah, so they talk about hope, and Fitzgibbon says that although hope burns brightly in the young when you get to his age, so 15 years old, you're lucky if the pilot light hasn't gone out.
And then he says, O'Malley says, oh, well, I've got a letter. I gave you that medicine to fortify you, but this should stoke the fires.
Yep, so he gets a letter, and it's from Jenny and the boys who are off
on their tour.
Yes. But don't worry, he asked for parental permission first.
Yep, so it's all fine. That
was a nice bit to add in.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to know that they had permission, but
yes,
didn't just kidnap 20-odd boys.
Just steal some kids. So it's fine, whatever. And they send back a check, and it was $3,500.
$3,500. Yes.
Which I was like, well, that's not a vast amount, but this is 1944,
that
so
is a
that
decent
probably
amount of
is.
money if you consider.
They were like
yeah.
ecstatic over like $35 on a collection. So
yeah, true. And it's like, well, obviously this means that
they can rebuild.
They can start to rebuild, and there is hope. And Fitzgibbon sort of almost comes back to life almost, and he's suddenly sort of, there is hope again, and then that's sort of the whole theme of this scene is that there is no hope, there is no hope. Oh look, there's a vast amount of money.
Yeah.
There is hope.
Yes, another Ex Machina.
Yeah.
Deus Ex Machina.
Deus Ex
However,
money
it's
bags.
at this point we find out. At this point, we find out that O'Malley actually has been reassigned again. So one would assume it is several months and not just like 3 weeks, and that he has been assigned by the bishop to another struggling church. So obviously, this is what he does. He goes and
he delivers another piece of information to Fitzgibbon as well, because he's been doing the rounds with the parishioners, and we find out that the Haynes chap he's coming home because he's been injured. Yes. So that means that we know he's alive and he's coming home, and I think that's important.
He's coming, which surprised me because I didn't expect him to, and there was a whole he might get a medal.
He's
then,
like,
and
no, his friend ran him over with a jeep.
He was ran over by a truck.
Yeah.
Which is just like, okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like someone shooting you in the ass.
Yeah.
Yep. So Haynes Jr. is coming home, and obviously that then closes that circle, so they can be happy together.
Is that when they're having their last drink together?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Fitzgibbons goes, I'll think of the perfect thing that I should have said now later when you've gone. Or paraphrasing, and I'm like, yes, I do that all the time. It's like, and in the moment, I cannot think of whatever it was, whatever witty comeback.
Yeah, usually
or
with
perfect
me,
thing.
Usually with me, it's a little bit a sharper barb than something potentially nice.
As a final insult, almost, the bishop has left Timmy O'Dowd to be Fitzgibbons' new assistant.
And Fitzgibbons go, even the bishop wouldn't be that cruel.
Aw, poor Timmy.
And then puts Tony Schiavone in charge of the choir.
Yes, I thought that was really sweet.
That was lovely.
Because, then when you see him conducting the choir in the next scene, it's just like, the kid's really grown up. He's got a purpose. He's come into himself.
And he looked, just putting him in a suit made him look quite a bit older as well.
Those striped t-shirts but he make everyone look 6 years old, I swear. I remember my brother got a striped t-shirt quite similar to that as, sort of like a 30-some-odd adult with a beard and, parent and all that. And he puts it on and I'm like, oh my god, you're a 5-year-old boy from like 1950. How did that happen? Genuinely.
It was such a nice contrast to the turkey-stealing young street urchin-y lad that we had at the start of the movie.
Yeah, him and Herman.
Yeah.
So it's nearly Christmas. It's O'Malley's last night, and the parishioners are gathering in a temporary church for a service that also serves as O'Malley's farewell. Although when the sort of Fitzgibbon was speaking about it, it almost sounds as if O'Malley was dead. It's like,
it was like a eulogy, and that's why Timmy kept on looking at him. It's like, he's not dead. He's not dead.
There. Yeah. What the heck? Yeah.
He's standing right there.
He wasn't. But and it was this scene was just really sweet.
And as a nice going away present, O'Malley has sent for Fitzgibbon's mother from Ireland, which I don't know how they've afforded that. If you can afford bring someone from Ireland.
And the Knickerbocker Savings and Loans Company, Mr. Haynes, has decided to give the church another mortgage as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's come around to the idea that all churches must have a mortgage.
Yes. Yeah.
But there's also I forgot a bit from the conversation with Fitzgibbons when O'Malley was standing there when he found out about him having to leave. He was like, I'm sure there'll be another old curmudgeon there, and then you'll get him to come round to your way of thinking. And
it was very much this is exactly what's happened in this
but
film.
It was almost like he wasn't acknowledging that he was the curmudgeon.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he kind of.
But it was kind of like a nod to it. I thought it was.
He recognised that was
where
what
he'd been.
Yeah. I mean, this was the perfect Mary Poppins moment. If he's tied up at all the ends, he's made all these people's lives so much better.
And now look on Father Fitzgibbons' face when he sees his mum, and it's just so sweet.
Oh, and that lovely lady gives him like the kiss on the cheek and presses him, and it's just so beautiful,
it's just
isn't it?
Emotional.
Yeah.
And then O'Malley just slips out of the door.
Yeah,
and he's gone. It's like he's
like
just
Mary
flown away
Poppins
on
when she leaves
umbrella
without ceremony.
Flies off into the distance.
Yep. It really was really Mary Poppins, but before Mary Poppins, and I loved it.
Wow.
So Fitzgibbon's mother turns up. They embrace as as the choir sings Turalu Rula,
Turalu Rula,
which is the
Irish lullaby.
Lullaby that we sing.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, feel free. As Father O'Malley quietly slips away into the night, and we see the title card saying the end.
I
And we all
assume
went,
that
"Aw."
wherever he's going to is what we're going to see in the Bells of St. Mary's.
Yeah.
I don't know, because that would almost seem like a retread of this film.
But
then.
St. Mary's must be the next place he's been assigned to.
Not necessarily.
I
It
assume
could be
it's
the
not
one
going to be the
after.
same storyline, and I think we're going to see more fixing O'Malley. I think we're going to see more about getting his life more sorted. Where this has been him fixing everyone else. That's my expectation for the next film.
Speculation about a film we have yet to
Yeah.
watch.
No, let's not
Expectations.
But don't worry,
speculate.
listeners.
If I can recommend anything,
Don't worry,
based on
listeners.
my
We'll get to that
experience of
eventually.
Comic book cliffhangers, is don't speculate too hard on what you think is going to happen in the next movie. Get really invested in your speculative theory and how solid and amazing it is, and then come up against the next movie and discover that actually, it's a much flimsier idea than the one that you had, and feel disappointed by it.
Okay, so we should do final thoughts.
I've got a couple of them back to
Oh, right. Yes, sorry. Daisy.
Alright.
Roll on with
Let me
the
get
fun
our
facts.
facts in first. So, fun fact, this film was banned in several Latin American countries.
Because
Oh, yeah.
O'Malley was wearing
Because
a white
they had
shirt
taste.
as a priest. I don't
Yes.
understand why that was a thing.
Well, that's a Protestant thing, not a Catholic thing. Yeah. And this film did ever so well with awards. I've already mentioned that it was the first one to win Oscars for both Best Film and Best Song.
Mm-hmm.
It was also the first Oscar win for to have two actors win Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor. It's also Liam McCarey was the first person to win the Oscar for both directing and for writing the original story for the same film. But so far as the actor Oscar went, they've changed the rules since. So this is no longer possible. I even looked up the rule. It's Rule 6.3. Fitzgerald, who played Fitzgibbons, he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, but he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor and Best Actor. So Bing Crosby beat him to Best Actor and he won Best Supporting Actor. But they've changed the rules now. You can only be nominated for either Best or Best Supporting. You can't be nominated for both categories.
That's whack.
Makes sense.
But they had a metal shortage back then. So the Oscars themselves, because of the war, obviously, the Oscars themselves were made of plaster instead. And a few weeks later, Fitzgerald managed to smash the head off his when he was practicing his golf swing.
Nice.
Oopsie.
I love it.
Another
Thank you so
another
much
one.
for
It's
that
also
fact.
the
That fact is
first
amazing.
Oscar win to get the Best Picture and Best Original Story. First one to get both of those. So you got a heck of a lot of firsts for getting like multiple Oscar things. It's
That's
very
impressive.
It goes to show that the Academy also thought very highly of that, and I think it's because they saw that this was the film that the country needed at the time as well, and that it was really well done.
Yeah.
That's it. on my facts.
I have to confess that every time you were saying Liam McCarey, I was thinking of the actor in West Wing, which is Liam McCarey. It is a different person.
It is definitely a different person.
Okay, so shall we wrap up with some final thoughts? Let's start with the positives. Joe, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, my final thoughts are really so much the same as my initial thoughts. This film was rather adorable. I didn't expect it to be. And even talking about it now, I've been sort of squeeing over it. But yeah, Mum and I had a very nice evening watching this, and yeah, came away with a sort of a tremendous sense of well-being, I guess, and that sort of the things were good in the world. I don't know. Yeah, I think that pretty much sort of describes it. It was really quite heartwarming.
Fair enough. Daisy, do you want to go next?
Yeah, this wasn't the film that I expected it to be, but it was so good. I had not been expecting a Catholic priest version of Mary Poppins. The music was a lot sparser than I was expecting Bing Crosby musical. And I thought it worked really well because there was a story. It was part of the story. It wasn't like, and then weirdly characters start singing. It was what happens.
It wasn't this traditional musical sort of spontaneous songing.
And this is ranked right up there for feel good movies for me now. Like, this is going to get quite a number of rewatches from me because it really just felt really nice watching this, and I can really see why it was highest grossing for its year. It was exactly what the countries needed, So Bing Crosby was just brilliant and fantastic performances all around from the cast, really, and I loved it, and I really connected with this movie.
Yeah, can I just I thought of one more thought what you were saying about the music. Yeah, I was expecting it to be more of a musical, but oh my God, can Bing Crosby sing? He had just the most amazing voice. We didn't really talk too much about the singing, but it was just like melting butter in a pan.
He has a dreamlike quality to his
caramel.
Singing.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that you don't need to talk about Bing Crosby's voice because I don't think you'll find anybody who says anything else against it. It's such a great voice.
I have very fond
This
memories.
was like 10 years before White Christmas as well.
Yeah,
the Bing Crosby
in this film,
Christmas record.
they sing.
That when he's singing the Christmas song with the kids, sort of closer to the beginning, I was just like, this is exactly like that LP that we used to listen to at my grandmother's house every Christmas.
Oh.
And in fact, I own that on iTunes. It's such a it's an iconic voice, definitely. Yeah. Even me who did not connect at all with this film.
But do you want to do your final thoughts now, then, Dave?
Well, let's do Sammy first.
Are you
Sammy,
sure
final
you want
thoughts?
them? Are you sure?
Yes.
Yes.
Bring them on.
Every final thought is valid.
Okay, it's bringing the tone down a little bit.
Well, as long as you don't
worry,
insult Bing
I should do
Crosby's
the
voice,
same.
we're fine.
I have nothing bad to say about Bing Crosby's voice, either speaking or singing. It is fine. This movie was fine. My assessment is that it's fine. It was just fine. There's nothing about it that pulled me in and tugged at my heartstrings and made me feel anything at all, really. It was just kind of there. It's as background noise, it's functional, but it didn't have enough of a kind of genuine sort of emotional thread to make me feel much at all. It was a sequence of events that are vaguely connected, and I was bored. It wasn't it wasn't the kind of terrible that I want to yell about, or the kind of terrible that I really have any major other grievances to address. It was just kind of a nothing film. It was there and then it ended, and that's it. That's my assessment. And as someone who likes things that have happy or hopeful endings and that aren't just like misery guts and grimdark and drama, I've got anxiety. I like soft, happy things, but this, I don't understand why it's great. I just don't get it. Sweetheart, your final thoughts.
And I would say my final thoughts are exactly the same, to be honest. It just, as I've said throughout this entire podcast, it did not grip me at all. I had no interest in any of the characters. I had no interest in the storyline or the plot or what was going on, and I think
compare and contrast it with other films of this era. Where you have characters sort of like emerging sort of in hopeful ways in the face of sort of like the terrible adverse wartime conditions that they were dealing with. I think there are definitely other stories that deal with it in a way that feels more emotionally connected for me personally, even if it's just I feel more for what the characters are going through, and the fact that they get through it at the end makes me feel good and hopeful and happy, whereas this is just kind of okay, like a man learns to play golf. That's nice. But the only bit that made me sort of go, oh no, was the bit when the guy goes off to war, and I expected that the worst was going to happen, and then it didn't, and that was nice. But again, it wasn't really impactful in any way.
No, I think you've echoed everything I was going to say as well, so I won't bother saying it. But no, to be honest, it was just
like even something like The Good Life, which as a sitcom, is just nice. But even then, there's like a little bit more drama to make you invested. I think, this was too nice.
That was 1944's Going My Way. Next time round, we will be watching something slightly different. In that, we will be watching 1993's... Oh, Jesus, has it really been that long?
Yes!
Jurassic Park.
Dinosaurs! And
Dinosaurs, Jeff. So,
I love him so
I can tell you now, I'm looking forward to that a lot more than I'm looking forward to what we've just
I think
watched.
we're probably going to be a bit more in consensus on our opinions on the next one.
Jeff!
One would hope
Dinosaurs!
so,
I would hope
yes.
so.
Sam Neill! The kids! Laura Dern!
So let's leave it the next time it will be Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Yay!
Until then, though, I'd like to thank all my fellow podcasters. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Daisy.
Thanks for going my way.
And thank you, Sammy.
Thank
I'm
goodness
so
we
sorry.
never have to watch it again.
And thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed the fact that we are polar opposites on this
And if you haven't
particular
seen
film.
this film,
I hope that made for an interesting.
I hope you appreciate that we watched it on your behalf and now you don't have to.
But
Or
no,
if you want to, feel free.
Good movie.
You should watch this movie.
Yeah.
We recommend it.
Don't watch this
Or at least
movie.
50% of this podcast recommends it.
It's 50%.
50%
I think
chance
50%
of liking
recommend
it.
it, 50% don't. But thank you all for listening
We'll
anyway.
see you next time.
If you want to watch the video, watch the film, feel free.
We don't care.
Don't blame me. But until then, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next. Well, we'll speak to you next time. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Home Movie Club, part of the That Podcasting network. Visit us at www.thatpodcasting.co.uk, where you can find links to all our social media, including Twitter, Facebook, and our new YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe for news of our future episodes coming soon.